Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back into the video today, and today we're going to be talking about why the Houston Texans are a dangerous team to the NFL. This might be surprising, and honestly, after the start to the season with the first two games, I didn't think I'd make a video like this. I knew the Texans were underrated. Even though they started off 0-2, I knew they would be better than people thought they would be, but I honestly did not expect a performance like that yesterday. I do have to say I am proud to admit that I did have the Texans winning yesterday. I did, and you can go back to my Texans prediction video for the game in yesterday's game against the Jaguars, but I did not have them win by as much as they did. I had them winning 26-24, and I said if they were going to win, they were going to win by 2 to 5 points. And they ended up winning by 20, 37-17. They honestly shocked me, and that was the best game to watch as a Texans fan. Honestly, I would say the last Texans game like that I had the most fun watching. I would have to say was probably January 2020 when the Houston Texans and Deshaun Watson beat the Buffalo Bills in the wild card in overtime. That was the most excitement I've had watching a Texans game since 2020 of January. It's almost 4 years that I've had that much excitement watching a game for the Houston Texans. I week 1, week 2, I loved watching C.J. Stroud because he played so good in the first two games, but the Texans as a team didn't play that good. C.J. Stroud was really the only player that was having success, but this was a team success yesterday. Obviously, C.J. Stroud was the big shine. He was the guy that, was the best player for the Houston Texans yesterday, but when he was playing good in week 1 and week 2, the team was not. And I really saw a whole team difference in yesterday's ball game. And they beat the Jaguars, a team that won a playoff game last year against the Los Angeles Chargers, came back from down 27-0, nearly beat the Kansas City Chiefs in the divisional round, and are the favorites, and probably, even though they're 1-2, are probably still the favorites to win the division. I don't know, maybe the Colts are kind of up there with the Jags now, and maybe the Texans are too. Definitely not the Titans, though. But I do believe that this Texans team showed a lot of good things, especially C.J. Stroud, Tank Dell. Even though Nico Collins and Robert Woods weren't that great yesterday, although their targets kind of went a little bit down, I think they showed a lot of good things for this Texans team in the weeks prior. This defense showed a lot of good things. Blake Cashman shined with this Texans defense yesterday with an interception and a fumble recovery. Jimmy Ward in his Texans debut was great, making hard hits for the Houston Texans and looked amazing at the safety position. Will Anderson Jr. looked good with 4 tackles in a field goal block as well, with a big return to the 41-yard line. Special teams looked great with an Andrew Beck 85-yard kick return and a field goal block by Will Anderson Jr. and two field goal misses by the Jacksonville Jaguars that the Houston Texans forced. The Texans on the first kick, on the 48-yard kick, the Texans did bring some solid pressure. So I think this Texans team, not only to go into Jacksonville, the division favorites, and won a playoff game last year, and I will admit they were a healthy football team. They didn't have a lot of injuries on their team. I mean, the only player that was significant that was out for Jacksonville was Zay Jones, and that's not much of an excuse because they had Trevor Lawrence has guys like Evan Ingram and Christian Kirk and Calvin Ridley to throw the ball to if Zay Jones is out. So. And Zay Jones isn't even the number 1 wide receiver. He's more like the number 3. So the Jacksonville was pretty much a healthy team yesterday, and the Texans went, which they were not a healthy team, without 8 starters and multiple players on the IR, and the Texans won that game. Four offensive linemen, starting offensive linemen, C.J. Stroud, were missing. The only starter was Shaq Mason, Laramie Tunsil, Titus Howard, Juice Scruggs out, Kenyon Green's out for the season. And C.J. Stroud had no poise, was sacked 0 times, and I think he was sacked like almost 10 times in the first 2 weeks. 0 sacks for this Texans offensive line. They did a great job of protecting C.J. Stroud yesterday. Now, there was some times where C.J. almost went down, but C.J. did a great job of getting out of pressure as well in yesterday's ball game. But this Texans team looks good, and honestly, call me crazy, and I do get called crazy sometimes when I defend my Texans, but I got to say, I see this Texans team it's not like this team is dangerous, which they are good, but I could see this team winning 10 to 11 games this year, and it's just about their schedule. It's not about how good they are. They're a good team. They're a very underrated team, and if they had a hard schedule, they'd probably win. Like I'm talking about, like if they had a hard schedule, like a schedule like they had last year, they'd probably win 6 or 7 games, maybe even 8. But they have a very easy schedule. I'm going to go over their schedule. Steelers next week. I'm going to go over their schedule. And I'm going to tell you what I think happens with the outcome. Steelers next week, I know that's a home game. I don't see the Texans performing well. I think it's a close game, but I think with TJ Watt coming after CJ Stroud and the only offensive lineman the Texans are going to get back is maybe Laremy Tunsil. I think, CJ Stroud might struggle just a little bit, but I think the Texans keep this game close. The Steelers kind of struggle with, run defense, and I think this could be the game for Dameon Pierce to have a great game for the Houston Texans. I think the Texans probably lose that game in a close game, but the Atlanta Falcons, I think this is a win for the Houston Texans on the road. So now you're 2-3. I think you beat the Saints at home. You're now with that win. I believe, yeah. So you're 1-2. Then you lose the Steelers. You're 1-3. Then you beat the Falcons. You're 2-3. I think you beat the Saints. You're 3-3. Although that could be a hard game. I think you beat the Panthers. I think you beat the Panthers. You're 4-3. I think you beat the Buccaneers. You're 5-3. I think you lose to the Bengals. You're 5-4. I think you beat the Arizona Cardinals. Now you're 6-4. I don't see the Houston, even though this is a home game, I don't see the Houston Texans pulling off a sweep against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now you're 6-5. I don't see the Texans losing to the Broncos. You're 7-5. I know the Jets have a good defense. This could be a challenge for the Texans, but the Jets have a terrible offense, and I don't see them making a quarterback change. So I see the Texans beating the Jets. They're now 8-5. I don't see the Texans losing to the Tennessee Titans. The Titans are terrible, and they'd be 9-5 with that win in Tennessee. I do see the Texans losing to the Cleveland Browns. I think the Browns are going to be a great team this year, so then you're 9-6. I don't see the Texans losing to the Titans at home, and so now with that, beating the Titans at home, that's also the game where the Titans come in wearing the Houston Oilers uniform, and I think that will be a game where the Texans go into NRG Stadium trying to kick some butt, and you're 10-6. I hate to say this, but I think you get swept by the Colts and you lose in Indianapolis. So you finish the season 10-7. So I know you can call me crazy for saying the Texans are going to go 10-7, and there are obviously some games in there that the Texans can lose that I said they'd win. I think the Saints is a potential one that I could see them losing, that I had them winning. I think the Jets is a potential one I could see them losing, that I had them winning, because who knows, maybe the Jets make a quarterback change. But here's what I have to say. This Texans team is a good team. They beat the Jaguars by 20 with 8 starters out. They're going to get some of those starters back against Pittsburgh. On defense, they're going to get Denzel Perryman, who was their leader in tackles before yesterday's game at linebacker. They're going to get Jalen Petrie back at safety. I love Will Anderson Jr., and the only reason I'm going to say this is because he's a rookie. Jalen Petrie, as of right now, is the best player on this Texans defense. And also, they should get back at left tackle Laremy Tunsil, our all-pro left tackle. And then week 5 against the Falcons, we will get back Titus Howard at right tackle. In week 6 against the Saints, we should get back center Juice Scruggs. And then eventually down the road, probably you'll see week 9, week 10, we could get back Derek Stingley Jr. So, and then also week 6, week 7, we might get back Tavier Thomas, our starting nickel. So, it's looking good for this Texans team, beating up on the Jaguars like they did. And, with so many players injured, and now they're starting to get some players back. Jalen Petrie, Denzel Perryman, and Laremy Tunsil will be back for this next game against the Steelers. Then you have Titus Howard being back week 5. Juice Scruggs being back week 6, alongside Tavier Thomas being back week 6, and then eventually down the road, Derek Stingley Jr. being back for the Texans as well. So goodly and slowly, the Houston Texans will start to get healthier, and this will be a very good sign for our Texans. You guys let me know your thoughts on the Texans. They're dangerous, everybody. I think as of right now, call me crazy, but I think with the Texans' easy schedule, I think the Texans should be the favorites. I think the Texans should be the favorites to win the AFC South. I know the Jaguars are good, but they're going to lose some games they're not supposed to. They have 2 hard games coming up in London against the Falcons. They don't have the best run defense, and they're about to go up against Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier, and that's going to be a tough game, I think, next Sunday morning. Well, it's not going to be morning for them, but it's going to be morning for me. And then they play the Buffalo Bills in London as well. So back-to-back London games. And then I think what will be a true challenge for the Jaguars is they play the Indianapolis Colts. I know the Jaguars own the Colts in Jacksonville, but I think an adjustment for the Jaguars, coming back to the U.S. after being in London for 2 weeks. I think that could be a huge adjustment for Jacksonville in week 6. But yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts on the Houston Texans. I think they're dangerous. I think if not the favorites, they have to be one of the favorites to win the AFC South. I think the Jags are probably still one, even though they have a 1-2 start to the year. But if the Jags are not, if the Jags are not one, I think the Texans need to be one. But if the Jags are one, I think the Texans need to be two. That's the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts, and peace out. Go Texans.